Welcome back to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing performance, management, metrics, and effectiveness, because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders, joined as always by Jessica Grazer, VP of Marketing here at NinjaCat. Today we're talking about AI and ethics with Felicity Wild, a copywriter turned AI ethics educator and creator of Nobody Cares About Ethics. We get into why short-term business thinking, AI hype cycles, and glazed-over boardrooms are exactly why ethics needs a rebrand, and how marketers, operators, and content creators can build ethical muscle without sounding like a compliance manual. AI and ethics isn't an oxymoron, and the smartest thing you can do is stick around for this chat, so let's go.
All right. Well, Felicity Wild, welcome to What Gets Measured. So glad to have you here. And I wanted to start out with the name of your blog and newsletter. Nobody Cares About Ethics. Obviously a little tongue in cheek, but it's, sticky and memorable. So what reaction were you hoping to provoke when you launched the blog? And why do you think the word ethics has such a kind of PR problem in the business world?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm a copywriter by trade, so I like a name that gets a reaction. I think it's a really underrated brand asset. So that was a big consideration in choosing the name. But it also really speaks to the frustration that I was feeling when I went on a deep dive into AI ethics when I first sort of getting started with this subject. And the frustration was that I was studying all of this stuff and it seemed really important. But then I was looking at the hype on LinkedIn and being bombarded with all these messages that were very different from the ethical questions that I was thinking about in great detail. It made me kind of think, why does nobody care about this? Like, does anybody actually care about ethics? And I discovered that actually people do care about ethics, but the problem that AI ethics has, and this kind of PR problem, this image problem, is that I think people see it as a purely philosophical pursuit without any real relevance to the real world, particularly the real world of business. I think people see it as compliance theatre in a corporate setting or virtue signaling, a bit like corporate values sometimes tend to be a bit empty, a bit vague. They kind of look flashy, sound good on, look good on paper, but then in reality, they don't really mean anything. They don't reflect reality. Or the third problem is that it's seen as a tactic by skeptics to frustrate progress, to stall progress, to get in the way. And I don't think any of these things are true, or I think there's partial truth in all of them, particularly the philosophical pursuit, because I have done those courses. And it's sometimes quite dry, quite hypothetical. But the way that I see ethics, I think there's a way of looking at it really practically, and a way of using it as a really practical decision-making framework for better progress, rather than a barrier to progress, using it as a catalyst for better progress. I mean, it depends on our definition of progress. But if we're talking about like being inclusive, being transparent, fairness, all of those things with a view to sort of long-term sustainability, then I think AI ethics is a really good way to make decisions around AI.
Makes a lot of sense. I realized we almost jumped right ahead without even letting you provide a definition of what do you mean by AI ethics and how
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
do you kind of frame that for the business world?
So I think AI ethics, if we're thinking about AI ethics for business, it's really about balancing opportunity and responsibility. Sometimes it's framed as risk and reward, but I find opportunity versus responsibility easier to understand. I think right now we're at a really interesting point where we're moving from experimenting with AI into embedding it into business workflows, into processes. But there's a weird tension because there's not much regulation there. And so there's not really much guidance about how we should be doing this. And I think there's a real risk. Regulation's coming, it's around the corner. But I think there's a real risk that people might embed AI into their workflows and then have to redo when regulation comes in. But a lot of regulations are founded in ethical principles about responsibility to protect privacy and to ensure that systems are fair, and to put in processes to try and prevent bias. So I think AI ethics is really practical in that sense, and it's kind of a form of future proofing. Like it's a way of thinking through all of these decisions so that you're not going to have to redo them again when regulation comes in.
It's frustrating because you're answering all of our questions like in one go. I'm just like, oh man, yo. But I think it's very interesting to think about opportunity versus responsibility. Do you get people? Because I'm with you. I think ethics is like, that's just a personal choice. I'm choosing to be ethical, or you can choose not to, and we'll just kind of continue doing business. How you've made contact with the business world. Do they think opportunity versus responsibility? Was that the dichotomy that you chose? It
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
So do they like that? Do you get them kind of like, have you felt people get turned on to ethics?
Yeah, I think that you have to frame it right. You have to frame it as a way to make better decisions. It's not it's not kind of all sitting around philosophically asking these questions. And like a lot of the courses that I did, the big question was around programming driverless cars. And how many of us are like programming driverless cars in our working lives? Not many. We're not really having to think about a driverless car crashing into a pedestrian or, those sorts of decisions. They're actually the more mundane decisions day to day. But if you extrapolate, they could still have potentially quite big impacts and unknown impacts because we don't know an awful lot right now about what we're doing. So I think, framing it as a way to make better decisions is the thing that really catches people's attention. And also I treat it as a conversation-based discipline. So you don't get to sit in your room, your office, and decide what's ethical without speaking to anyone else. That's not how this works. Sorry.
Do you feel like people have up until now sort of done that? They're just come up like in an ethical vacuum. How does that even work? It
Yeah,
seems safer.
For sure it is safer, particularly if it involves confronting some slightly awkward conversations about maybe like the future of work and stuff. Um, but I think people confuse ethical decisions with like, I don't really like that, so that's unethical. When really it's this balancing opportunity and responsibility. It's not personal opinion or gut feeling. So to do it properly, you need diversity of thought. You need diversity of opinion. You need to speak to people who are going to be impacted by this technology. If you're making decisions about AI ethics in a business, you need to speak to the people who are using this technology in their jobs. The way that I'm trying to frame it is that this helps people explore these gray areas together, which I think helps people work towards better decisions because it breaks down those barriers. It's a very emotive, polarized subject at the moment. I was speaking to somebody, a CEO this morning, who said their leadership team are really divided. There's people who want to be really ethics led and really sort of embed it properly into decision making. And then there's some people who see it as a barrier, the kind of the typical other side. And they don't think we should think about it. They just want to press ahead and do what they're going to do. And they want a way to bring everyone together to form a mutual understanding of ethics, not as a barrier, but as something that can really help them make better choices. So it's that conversation piece that people are really responding to because it is so polarized everywhere on social media, at work, and your if you're down the pub speaking to people, there's some strong opinions.
So how do you help them bridge that gap? I mean, with they're on such kind of polar opposite sides. What are some of your techniques or conversation starters to start to bring them together?
Yeah, well, I'd like to start every workshop by just having a little very honest talk about how we're all feeling about AI today. Because there tends to be, everyone picks a side, there's enthusiasts, there's skeptics, but even the skeptics have personal concerns about this technology. The enthusiasts have personal concerns about this technology, and the skeptics, there are possible things that they could get excited about if it's kind of explained, in the right way. So we kind of start with just being really honest about how we're feeling, what our concerns are, what we're excited about, to help everyone in the room understand each other a little better and just kind of level the playing field a little bit, and like take the barriers down. And I find that creates a sort of psychological safety because then we can move forward together and look at the nuance and the gray areas and with a bit more understanding.
See, but I can see it. It's just like, I see these people. They're like business. I work at the speed of business. I move at the speed of commerce. I'm at the intersection of, whatever. They're too fast. They have to slow down. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, Jess has a question. I'm going to jump into it, Jess, and then we could switch it. But, ethics is forcing you to think beyond next quarter, and these people are already thinking that they're thinking beyond next quarter. So I think it's like a little bit sort of like, I think you are going to have to go and maybe start over. And you mentioned that, and I was like, ooh, that might be it. Because I think, I remember people are like, you can do it the right way, or you can do it whatever way you're doing it, Jake. And I remember taking that personally. And I was like, well, okay. But then eventually you do realize there is a right way, and you do have to go back and fix things. But we're talking about AI powered cost cutting. You got those things, but now it's impersonal. Maybe customers are churning. So that AI has maybe helped you. You didn't need ethics. You just needed to cram it in here. But now you need to start thinking, oh, hold on. Did I automate the entry level roles away? Like, what's going on with my pipeline? Like, talk about how ethics and AI are directly maybe linked to this pipeline that people think that they're looking at, but they're not.
Yeah. So I think on the question of sort of short-term versus long-term thinking, I think people tend to have a bias towards short-term gain. And then they are thinking about long-term, but it tends to be the intended long-term consequences. So what are the good things? What are the things that we want to happen long-term? But I think what people tend to not think so much about is the unintended long-term consequences. So your example of automating away the entry-level jobs. Yes, okay, we save a lot of money because we're not employing as many people. But then I think people working in entry-level jobs aren't just doing like data analysis or, the kind of the jobs that are, I don't know if that's a bit spicy to say, are easier to automate. We'll cut that bit out and just say people in entry-level jobs are generally doing tasks that are viewed as easier to automate, but they're not just doing those tasks. They're understanding the business from the ground up. They're gathering institutional knowledge about how the business works, how people work in a business setting. They're learning how to develop judgment and problem-solving skills and creativity. And it's not just this. I think there's probably a lot of the time when we talk about these things, it kind of uncovers other attitudes that are maybe slightly problematic. So perhaps it's our attitude towards entry-level positions that's the problem here. So then if you cut out entry-level jobs, you're cutting out all of those skills that they're gaining as well, which then, like you said, it kind of cuts your talent pipeline. And I think you're losing a lot more value than just these easy to automate jobs.
Absolutely.
And those are perhaps some unintended consequences that ethics forces you to think about that you might not otherwise think about.
Makes a lot of sense. And this is a bit of a spin on that same topic, but now AI agents are being embedded in workflows and especially in marketing, which is who we speak to all day, marketers and marketing operations folks. And so AI agents are now, writing copy, adjusting budgets, even reporting on performance. So from your perspective, how dangerous is it to treat these decisions as just automation?
Yeah, I think I'd say here you need to be really clear on what decisions still require human judgment and oversight. I think that clarity helps to take away the risk. There's a tendency to automation bias, which is where we trust machine judgment over the judgment of other people, often over the judgment of ourselves. And I think with AI agents, there's a risk, if we're not aware of that bias, there's a risk of not enough oversight, not enough checkpoints. And then that calls into question accountability as well. I think we always need to remember that ultimately, I think the accountability lies with us because we're still making these decisions. We're still ultimately, for now, in control, just about, I think. So I think we need to be really careful about which decisions we're automating. I think if we just offload the whole thing, no checkpoints, no oversight to an AI agent, that's where the real risks are. Whereas I can see there are real benefits to automating certain parts, but keeping a decent level of oversight and judgment.
So I had so when you said human oversight,
Mm,
and I was thinking human in the loop. We love the human in the loop.
mm.
We need a human in the loop. Um, but then I was thinking, who sets the parameters, the KPIs, the OKRs, and those are the people that are saying human oversight might be needed in these areas. So I was thinking, is an ethical shakedown, like, I think maybe that's what you're asking for in the beginning, is we need to have an ethical shakedown. And we need to think, what are we doing long term that's going to get us opportunities versus responsibilities? Who's in charge here? Those kind of boring things. But then I'm thinking, who sets the parameters that you measure success and human oversight? And does ethics get to play a role in KPIs? And like, we talk about measurements, we talk about dashboards and reporting. Well, how is ethics playing on in the dashboard? Are you like, why are you even tracking this? Is it not that it's ethical, but does it make sense long term? You know what I mean? Like, does ethics help shake your dashboards up and your reporting up?
I think so. Probably not like as directly as you're saying there, but I think if you're talking about what's safe and what's responsible, you also have to talk about what is good. What does good look like? Which means you have to have a really clear rationale for why exactly we're using these tools versus humans, or, what they're bringing to the table. So I think in that respect, it really can help.
Mm. But what you said, ethical is just something I don't like. It's unethical if I don't like it. And if it's good, then it is ethical. It's just like,
Yeah.
it feels so dumb, but you're like, is there some kind of sense that you can bring from that? How do you shake yourself down from saying that's unethical? How do you know what's ethical or not? I mean, like, what
Yeah,
are
I
you
think you
saying?
just have to I think you just have to speak to other people. That is
Oh,
usually a pretty I know,
Felicity
that's usually it's usually
on
a
a
pretty good
podcast?
sense check. I know.
Ah,
I have another point to add,
go.
if we can kind of skip back to like the
Please,
automation
yes.
bias thing. The other point, I'm always strongly on team human. I don't know if that's obvious, but I think it's important to remember with AI agents, possibly tools that we're outsourcing some decision making to now. They're likely third party tools, maybe not, but they don't really care about your success in a meaningful way. They're not particularly invested in the same way that an employee might be. They're not earning their livelihood from your business. They're not, their career isn't dependent on what's happening in the organization. So they really don't have that much of a vested interest in your success. They follow instructions. So I think when we're talking about oversight and human judgment and where humans belong in the loop, outside the loop, driving the loop, who knows? I think that's always important to remember, that these tools are neutral. They don't care about your success.
Makes a lot of
Truth.
sense. And I feel like we
Yeah.
mostly hear about when the mistakes happen. I mean, that's what makes the headlines, right? The gaffes, the issues that pop up when somebody just, as you mentioned earlier, kind of just decided to trust the AI without actually doing the due diligence or, going back to fact check. So with that in
Mhm.
mind, kind of what's a recent example, can be from any discipline, marketing, tech, public life, where a lack of ethical foresight created a kind of mess that could have potentially been avoided. And on the flip side,
Yeah.
seeing a team just get it right, like operationalizing ethics in a way that worked without killing the speed or innovation, um, on those two two sides of the table.
Yeah. So I'm going to go for a pretty big example to answer your first question, from public life, and that's the recent reports that we're seeing into AI psychosis. Um, and it's a pretty grim example, but I think it's very poignant. And I think that comes from a lack of ethical oversight. So these tools are designed with a bias towards positive reinforcement. And this is a design decision. It's intended because it makes an engaging tool that users want to use, that they enjoy their experience with. It builds a trust and rapport, um, and through this support and validation, and it increases user satisfaction. It encourages engagement. So that's all. These are all the intended consequences of this decision. But then, if we look at human nature and psychology, um, then we think about human tendency to anthropomorphize things, which means give human qualities to things that aren't human. And I felt this, I think we all have interacting with a chatbot. It's really easy to forget that this is a machine interaction, that you're not just chatting to your friend on Messenger. Because it does feel human. Um, but there are a few things that are different about talking to a chatbot than talking to your friend. There's not the kind of social checks. If you start to go into slightly dangerous territory, your friend might, or we've all kind of talked to maybe vulnerable people, and you have natural checks. You could have stopped the conversation going, perhaps where this person wants it to go. There's also like the sort of therapist relationship as well. A lot of people are using these tools as therapists, but therapists don't just validate and support all of your thinking. You know, there's an element of challenge, there's an element of friction that is missing in these chatbot interactions, which is why it tends to reinforce delusional thinking, which has led to AI psychosis in a few cases. Really sadly, people have ended up taking their own lives. There's also been research about how quickly, with vulnerable users, chatbots veer into conspiracy theories and all that sort of pretty dangerous territory, confirming, distorted perceptions because there's this lack of challenge. And it's mimicking a human to human interaction with some important things missing.
Yeah.
And I think that's an oversight. There's, I think, a really obvious fix for that. And that has now become obvious in hindsight. But I think the lack of foresight and thinking about that has caused some pretty serious consequences. So that's making a big example that I think is easiest to understand.
And those companies are now putting guardrails in. Meta just released a bunch of safety reports, the whistleblower things. I mean, everybody's sort of, now they're putting in guardrails, and it's sort of like, if you could have done it, why didn't it start like this? And it's sort of like just a land grab kind of thing. Well, let's talk about somebody who did it right. I'm most interested in that. Like, who is just like ethically just like, what does that look like? How does that feel? Is there an example?
There's I wanted to find a really big example. Sadly, lacking. If somebody's listening to this and they're like, I am that example, please get in touch.
Please
I want
do.
to talk to you. Where I'm seeing most success is I'm working right now with founders of sort of solo business owners, smaller organizations. I think organizations where they're using AI to genuinely increase team capacity rather than maybe in some larger organizations that's more towards the kind of cutting headcount, cutting expenses side of things. And it's much easier for them to embed ethics into their decision making because the teams tend to be more aligned, they tend to be more agile and flexible, and kind of all on board with what's happening. There's generally more transparency. So right now I'm seeing the best examples of ethical practice coming out of really small businesses wanting, and because trust is so important to small businesses. I mean, it's important to everyone, but particularly for small businesses, solo founders are likely the face of their brand. They really want to be careful to get this right because there's some big reputational risks there that they want to avoid.
I think that even for larger teams, there's the lesson there, though, is that the smaller kind of decision-making side, that's usually how innovation works best, or when there's bureaucracy. And so, the ability to kind of have small tiger teams, even within larger organizations, to work on these initiatives is the key.
Absolutely. There was a report published by MIT a few weeks ago about shadow AI use, which is when employees are using kind of unauthorized is a strong term because often there's not authorized use of AI because there's not a lot of governance going on a lot of the time. But oftentimes this shadow AI use, it's people just trying to make their jobs easier, right? They've got these amazing tools at their fingertips and they find really innovative ways to use this technology to their benefit to make their lives easier and to make their jobs better. And they compared the shadow AI use to the kind of official company AI policies and initiatives, and the success rate of shadow AI use, the reported success was much higher. Generally, sort of company-wide initiatives tend to stall in pilot phase, not really deliver on the returns that were promised or that were hoped, potentially because there hasn't been this inclusive, sort of transparent piece.
Right, kind of like bottoms up approach too. I think that tends to be like if it's a top down, like use this to do it this way, but the people who actually know the job, who know the tasks, who know the day in, day out, are going to be the best people to know how to improve that flow. I would think.
Always.
I think
Yeah.
that's something.
Exactly. And this is where trust is really important, because you have to have trust. If you want to get the most out of this technology, you have to ask the people doing their jobs how they can use it to do their jobs better. But then you have to confront awkward conversations about, well, what does this mean for the future of my job? Am I engaging with something that's potentially going to make me obsolete? Like if I help you in this, are you then just going to fire me because I created something that replaces me? So I think this is where trust, transparency, having these conversations is really important, because otherwise this won't work.
Wait, this is swinging back around a little bit full circle, but thinking about like you personally and your job as a content strategist, was that any part of your thought process as you kind of moved into this new kind of career path in ethical AI? Was there a moment where you kind of were like, oh, like the nature of content is changing, or what was that aha moment, if there was one?
It was more that I've spent my professional life making information relevant and relatable. So this actually links right back to the kind of PR problem, the image problem that we were talking at the start. Yeah, I spent my life making information relevant and relatable to a specific audience through framing it, and yeah, all of those other copywriting techniques that we use. And when I was studying AI ethics, I was just thinking they're missing a trick here. I don't know who they are, but we're all missing a trick here. Them, exactly. This information isn't really that relevant or relatable to me. I'm getting really into it because I'm a massive nerd and like love a big subject I could lose myself in, which AI ethics absolutely is. So like I went down a rabbit hole there just because that's what I do. But for people that aren't really that way inclined, don't really have that much time to think about this, there's some really easy, obvious lessons that anyone could learn, but you've got to make it relevant and relatable. You've got to frame these things in people's context, like put it directly into their world, to make them care about it and show them why it's a good thing, like why it's really beneficial, why it's not just kind of sitting around wondering about, these big questions that you can't ultimately do anything about. And that kind of links to my point about human agency. I don't know if this is quite a big thing or a big part of my belief, but a lot of the narrative around AI is it removes accountability. So it's AI replacing jobs, when actually it's not AI replacing jobs. It's humans deciding to replace other humans with AI. So there's this agency and accountability piece where we're at the beginning. We're at the beginning of what's going to be a very long road with this technology. Like we're in it for the long run. And the choices that we're making are influencing how this technology develops, because it's all being developed by human choices for now. Who knows what's going to start happening with super intelligence. So I think our choices all matter. I think we all have a responsibility to make good choices, because every choice that we make is a vote for the future that is coming, that we want, that we deserve. And that's kind of the center. I want people to feel really empowered about that. There are things that we can control. We can control how we use this technology. It's not happening to us. So that's one of my messages.
That makes a lot of sense. And this is a way to kind of wrap that all up, maybe in a different way, but one of the questions to round out was, just somebody for listening, we mostly have marketing and marketing operations as our audience, but if it's a CMO or like a head of ops who hears ethics and just kind of shuts down, like, not my problem, what's your challenge to them to get them to listen?
Yeah. So I think my first challenge would be, okay, if you think ethics isn't your job, it's trust your job. Because really ethics is the foundation of trust, and trust at all levels. If we think about a customer service chatbot or AI tool for recruitment screening, CV screening, every time, if you're asking your customers to interact with a chatbot, if you're asking potential candidates to put their CV, their resume through an AI recruitment screening tool, you're asking them to trust that you're making good choices here. You're asking them to trust that you're protecting their personal information, that you're not going to be making sort of wildly biased recruitment decisions. So it really comes down to to trust there. And trust, I think we're in a bit of a trust recession at the moment. It's kind of hard to come by. And ethics is, I think, a great way to, if you're openly and transparently investing in responsible innovation, I think it's a great way to build trust. And then not just externally, internally as well. Teams need to trust that the AI tools that you're saying that they should use aren't going to undermine them, and that they are going to help them. So I think AI adoption internally really is a human thing. It's not really a tech thing so much, because the tech can be brilliant. If nobody uses it, it's useless. So it really all comes down to humans and to trust and accountability that we've touched on as well. So that's my first challenge. My second challenge is the human agency piece that I've already talked about, because I don't think any of us don't operate in a vacuum, and that we all have accountability for how this technology develops. I think we all have accountability for our personal choices. So this is a direct personal challenge. I think your choices matter. How you conduct yourself matters. And I don't think the future is inevitable. I think some of the hype likes to make us feel like the future is inevitable, but it's not written yet. And the choices that we make can directly impact the course that this technology takes. So I think we've got to think hard about what we want from the future of work, the future of life, and act accordingly and set an example. Because if we don't, like, who else is? We're all grown ups now.
It's true. It is true. I think a lot of people are waiting for the adults to enter the room, and then they're like, "Well, we're looking around," and I think that's us.
I think it's us too. So I think we all have a personal responsibility.
I have like 50,000 follow-up questions, and they go off in all these different directions. I'm going to send them to you in an email. We got to wrap up here. If people want to connect with you, sign up for this email course. I mean, just get the emails. It's a newsletter. It's very frictionless. You've made it. But every email I get from Felicity makes me think, and that's rare. So how can people sign up and get with you and learn more online, Felicity?
So they can go to my website. It's called nobodycaresaboutethics.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. I send it out. I'm not going to promise weekly. I send out weekly at the moment. It's my thoughts in progress. It's kind of my reaction to what's happening in the world, to conversations that I've had on LinkedIn with clients about AI ethics in the real world. And it's me processing my thoughts on this to try and help other people work through their big thoughts and feelings, because we've all got big thoughts and feelings at the moment about this topic. Yeah. And you can find my free email course there. It's called Awkward AI Ethics Conversations, and it's for anyone using AI at work, to help you have better conversations, to help you break down some of those barriers, explore grey areas, feel empowered to ask slightly awkward questions, in the knowledge that you're not being a barrier to progress. You're helping people think things through, and work towards better progress. So that's my 15-day email course. It's really easy as well. It's a 1-minute read a day with a reflective prompt to think about one ethical aspect of AI.
Cheese or chocolate?
Cheese or chocolate?
Cheese.
Okay. No question.
No hesitation.
I know.
Always
I was just
cheese.
like, don't even worry about it. Okay. Reading Yeats or baking yeast?
Oh, can I do both at the same time?
It sounds cozy.
It sounds super cozy. Very cottage core.
Yeah. I live in a little cottage in the middle of the country. It's what I spend. I spend my life doing very wholesome activities. It's how I stay sort of sane when I'm having to think about all these big questions in my professional life.
I think that's great.
You're gonna ask the next one, Jake. It's a
You ask it then.
night at home or out on the town.
Oh, night at home. I am far too sleep deprived to be.
I was thinking as I put that in there, Jess, I was like, bro, what are you doing with this one? Okay.
Night at home.
Me too. And I'm out on the town sometimes. I'm like, this is great. I don't think I want to be here. Okay. Joggers in public, is it a yes or is it a no?
Like around here, a yes, because I don't see that many people. But I know for in town in real civilization, but if I'm just kind of wandering around here and I see like my neighbor who's a farmer, he's in a boiler suit.
We're all good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Jess, what do you think?
mean, I'm all about comfort, so I say athleisure forever.
Let
Mm,
it roll.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Fair, fair. Spiders, live or let die.
Oh, live. Oh, yeah. Always live.
Well,
They're really,
always?
they're, yeah, important part of the ecosystem.
Asking an ethicist, you're asking an ethicist this
I
question.
know.
I'm just wondering if the spider jumps out at you like, wow, and you're like, huh, are you going to say ethics or are you about to kill that thing?
Oh, I'm going to try and say ethics. I'm going to try. I'm going to try my hardest.
That would be the
And that's
ethics.
the thing. The thing about ethics, there are no perfect choices. It's all about just doing your best. So,
Have a
yeah, I do
conversation
my
with the
best.
spider. Have a conversation
Yeah.
with the spider. That's what you're thinking. Jess, what do you think? The spiders, are they living or are they dying?
Oh yeah, I mean they such an important role in the ecosystem.
Everybody says that. Just seems okay.
I
Ask the.
I would like capture it in a glass and let it go outside. That is a true
Hey,
fact.
all
Best
all
of
right.
my unless like I was really caught off guard and then I might not be capable. But
Okay, that's what I'm saying. It's on a spectrum, and it's okay. It's about a conversation. Ask this next one because this is
okay.
important.
Kelpie or Nessie?
Oh, no. I think I'm going to say Kelpie because I love horses. And they are, yeah.
The cold, cute. I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Ke-
I think there's also more like Kelpies are kind of older folklore. Nessies maybe more a slightly newer 19th, 20th century invention. So I'm gonna go with the tradition as well.
Yeah. You
I
don't
like
want to
that.
also ran conspiracy to believe in, you want that original stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this is the last one. And I don't know if it's contentious. I'm not sure. We went really hard and Scottish on this one. Bagpipes. Are they hauntingly beautiful or are they just haunting?
I think they're hauntingly beautiful. But then I've grown up with every single kind of like significant moment has probably been soundtracked by them. So it's, it's the emotional connection. It's not perhaps the music itself. Yeah, no, I think they're hauntingly beautiful. I think but you have to, it's all about the setting, right? If you're at, I was recently at my friend's outdoor wedding in the hills, the wind blowing, the weather wasn't particularly nice, and they were walking down the aisle with the bagpipes. You've got to be in the natural setting to appreciate the full thing.
Absolutely. Like inside a house or inside like a Panera or a McDonald's or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you don't
Yeah,
do that.
because
Context.
no, originally they were used to like march soldiers into battle. So it's
Scare.
just like motivating, rousing, scary noise. Yeah.
It's a scary thing. And then they were like, you
Mhm.
know what? I can just play this thing. And they're like, all right, you're kind of weirding people out. Not that there was a right answer, but that was the right answer. Huh?
Oh, thank you.
Was it ethical to say that? I don't know. Oh,
Oh, I don't know anymore. I've
It's-
lost all perspective.